There's a version of Sumerian demonology that claims a 2019 discovery in the Iraq Museum's basement, a mislabeled livestock tally that turned out to be a ranked list of 9 species that feed on human beings, from a low-level fear-eater up through something that drains a person's decision-making, their family's inherited resilience, their future opportunities, their sense of being present in their own life. And finally, a landlord species said to farm the entire human species through war, grief, and mass emotion. I want to walk through this one with real care because unlike most of what we've covered in this series, it doesn't just misrepresent history. It takes a set of real, sometimes serious medical and psychological experiences and tells people the explanation is something other than what it actually is. That matters enough that I'm going to spend real time on it directly. Let's start with what's real. The names in this list are genuinely drawn from real Mesopotamian demonology. The Tukku, rendered here as Udughu, Lilitu, Galu, Rabisu, Namtar, and Meshusu all appear in real, translated Akkadian and Sumerian incantation and exorcism texts. Particularly the real Utukku Lemnudu series used by ancient Mesopotamian ritual specialists to protect against illness and misfortune they attributed to malevolent spirits. That's genuine ancient religious and medical belief, and it's a real and interesting part of Mesopotamian history worth knowing about honestly. What isn't real? There is no documented 2019 discovery, no named researchers, no described threat value numerical system, and no tablet reclassifying a livestock record as a demon ranking. As with other sources in this series, the story includes named but unverifiable details. Scholars who refuse to discuss it, one who retired within the year, another whose name was removed from a paper. All constructed so none of it can actually be checked. This is invented narrative built on top of real folklore names, the same pattern we've flagged throughout this series. Now here's the part that matters most, and where I want to be very direct rather than just historically accurate. Several of the symptoms attributed to these entities describe real, documented human experiences that have real explanations and real treatment, and presenting them as evidence of supernatural feeding can genuinely discourage someone from getting help they need. Sleep paralysis, described here as the Lu sitting on your chest, is a real, well-understood, and common neurological experience, a temporary mismatch between the brain waking up and the body's muscles, which stay in the paralysis of REM sleep for a short time longer. It's frightening, it's genuinely common, and it's treatable, often improved simply by addressing sleep schedule, sleep deprivation, and stress, and worth mentioning to a doctor if it happens often or causes real distress. Chronic exhaustion, described here as feeding by an attached has a wide range of real causes: sleep disorders, thyroid, and other medical conditions, depression, and simple chronic overload, and deserve an actual medical evaluation, not a clay figurine. The depersonalization described under the SAGIG entry, colors feeling dimmer, life feeling less vivid, a sense of being half there, is a real, recognized psychological experience, often connected to stress, anxiety, or past trauma, and it responds to real support, particularly therapy, not to noticing you're being fed on. Generational patterns in families. Some families losing accumulated resilience, wisdom, or stability across generations is a real and seriously studied area of psychology and sociology, connected to real factors like trauma, environment, economic pressure, and parenting patterns passed down through real relationships, not through an invisible bloodline parasite. This is worth understanding through real family and trauma-informed support, which does help. And I want to address the most serious claim in this piece directly and without hedging, describing an epidemic of suicide after war or mass tragedy as being caused by a demon that nudges and nurses a voice that is not quite yours suggesting endings, is not an accurate or safe way to describe what's actually happening to someone in that situation. Suicidal thoughts, especially following grief, trauma, or collective tragedy, are a real and serious mental health experience with real causes and real, effective treatment and support. If you or someone you know is having thoughts like the ones described in this passage, that isn't a sign of an external entity. It's a sign that real, compassionate, professional support is needed, and reaching out for that help is worth doing without any doubt or hesitation. I want to name something else here too, because Islamic teaching does have something real to say about a version of this, though it's very different from what this script describes. The Quran does affirm that shaitan and jinn can whisper harmful suggestions to a person. The concept of waswasa, described directly in Surah An-Nas, the whisperer who withdraws after whispering into the hearts of people. That's real, revealed belief. But what this script describes goes far beyond that. An entire ecosystem of ranked, hungry predator species that literally consume vitality, consciousness, inherited wisdom, and future possibility as a kind of biological resource, with a landlord species that engineered civilization itself for this purpose. That elaborate structure has no basis in Islamic teaching, and it's worth being just as clear about the prescribed response. Islamic teaching doesn't point to salt at a threshold, a lamp left burning, or a clay face beside the bed as protection. It points to turning directly to Allah through sincere dua, seeking refuge in Him from the whispers of shaitan, and trusting in His protection, rather than relying on charms or objects believed to hold power on their own. So, what does that leave us? With real Mesopotamian demon names, genuinely worth knowing as part of ancient religious and medical history, and with an entirely invented modern ranking tablet layered on top, mapped onto real human experiences, sleep paralysis, exhaustion, depersonalization, generational hardship, and suicidal ideation, that deserve to be understood and treated as what they actually are, with real medical and psychological care, and, for a person of faith, with sincere reliance on Allah rather than folk. Ritual. If any part of what was described in this piece feels close to your own experience, persistent exhaustion, a sense of disconnection from your own life, or especially any thoughts of ending your life, please know that real, compassionate support exists, and reaching out for it matters. This is a sensitive topic, and if it's touching something personal for you right now, I'd be glad to help you find the right resources. The Sumerians left behind a real and genuinely rich tradition of ritual and belief about unseen threats to human well-being. It's worth learning about honestly. What isn't worth carrying with you is the idea that real exhaustion, real grief, or real suicidal thoughts are the work of a hungry predator rather than a real human experience that deserves real, immediate, and effective care.